'Cause I'm yours to keep if you want to.
Okay, and we're off and running. Thank you for coming here, man. Appreciate you.
I'm happy to be here, man.
We'll just jump right in. So, what's your full name?
Ty Cody.
Are you named after anybody?
No. Be a lot cooler if I was named after a philosopher or something, but I'm not.
No, that's all good. Where were you born?
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. For some reason, I thought you were born and raised California.
Yeah, I've been here most of my life, but yeah, born and raised in the Twin Cities.
Sweet. How long did you spend there?
I moved here when I was like 21.
Oh,
like that.
Okay. So you grew up there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, all the way. I mean, it's funny because when I was like 20, I just started traveling. So I was never home. So I was just like going anywhere.
Sure.
Tokyo, Europe, wherever.
Sweet.
And then after I kind of did that for like a year and a half, then I was like, all right, time to go to LA.
Amazing, man.
And that's what happened.
Well, let's backtrack quite a bit. So what was it like growing up there?
It was cool. Damn, that's a hard question. I don't know. I mean, it was cool. You know, like going to the Timberwolf games was a big thing. My grandfather had season tickets. So
Sweet.
like for me as a kid, like that was a vivid memory.
Sure. Seeing Garnett, man.
Yeah,
How could
man.
you ever
Garnett,
forget? Yeah.
Marbury,
Yeah.
Gugliotta, if
Yeah.
anybody remembers Tom. It's just kind of like a random like white guy in the mix of like all these really good ball players. But
I remember the last name because it was a wild last name.
Gugliotta was good. Marbury and KG, they were kind of
Yeah,
like
that was the one
that was
too.
like dynamic duo, man.
Yeah.
Like if you were from Minnesota, even in general, like those were the guys.
For sure.
Like, those were the guys everyone looked up to if you played ball. I used to go to all like the Timberwolf camps. Like I used to play basketball.
Cool.
So basketball was like my thing growing up. I went to all the basketball camps, season tickets, because my grandfather's work allowed season tickets. So we were at every ball game. I actually did like a halftime show at one of the Timberwolves games. It was like me and this other kid. And I'll never forget because I was like 7 or 8 years old and my pants fell down when I was running across the court.
Nice.
So we had to basically take, like I was wearing Garnett's clothes. He was wearing Marbury's. And we had to put on all the clothes and then run to the other end, grab the ball, come back, and then like whoever made the shot wins. But it was funny because they said you had to do a layup. So that was the whole thing, like whoever can get the first layup. So as a kid, I'm just like, oh, I got this, right? Like layup's easy. But this, you know, the thing is like 10 feet. You know,
Yeah.
so like my first one, I was like, and the ball like went like 2 feet. Like I was way off. Like it went like into the crowd, like way off. And I'm like, all right, screw this. I'm just gonna shoot. You know?
Yeah.
So then I shot and
They were
won.
like, nah. Oh, you won.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I won. It was
Pants
cool.
fell off and you won.
Pants fell off
Under
and
pressure.
I won.
Of
Yeah.
course. That all makes sense now. That's why you're trading like a fucking beast. Your pants can fall off in an arena.
When you lose your pants in an arena, like nothing pretty much scares you for the rest of your life. That's about as bad as it gets.
Outside of basketball, what other stuff were you into when you were younger?
Like sports?
Anything. Video games, sports, cards.
Yeah, video games, man. Cards. Like we were into sports cards back then. Video games was big. Street hockey. So growing up there, I never played ice hockey because I just was never good on skates. Blades, I could tear blades up really well. So street hockey was a big thing. Played a lot of golf as well. My grandfather got me onto that. I'm trying to think of other like sports. Street hockey was a big one. BMX biking, like we used to just can we swear?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'd eat shit all the time.
Sure.
We just
As
go
you
make
do.
jumps and like
Yeah.
just go for it and just wipe out all the time. But yeah, I mean that was like kind of the biggest. I was in soccer, duh. As I think about soccer. Yeah. You know, I got a funny story about soccer.
Hey, let her rip.
Because it was funny. We were just bringing this up with my girl over here with my mom saying like, oh, I was good at soccer. And she was trying to like give me shit. She was just like, I don't know. I was like, no, I had like top goals, which is true. I was like forward. Offsides wasn't a thing. So I'm like, hey man, you just give me the ball.
Yeah.
Like,
Dunk.
Yeah. Like I would just wait for the ball to come to me and I'd be upfield. Like offsides wasn't a thing. I was like, all right, just, you know, whenever you get the ball, just dump it up here and I'll take it. So I was really good at soccer, funny enough. And
Given
I
that
almost
there was no
wanted to go.
offsides. We got to add the asterisk to this.
Yeah, when there's no rules
I was really
involved.
good at dunking when it was a 4-foot hoop.
Yeah, there's no rules involved. I'm good at soccer. But soccer was funny because I think I liked soccer almost more than basketball. Those are like my two main, basketball and soccer. But soccer was funny because I thought I wanted to go pro. I was like, no, I'm going to be like professional. I'm going to go soccer. And then I want to say I was like maybe 11 years old. And somebody told me, I still don't to this day remember who told me. Somebody told me like soccer players make no money. And back then, I think it kind of was like that. It's not like as celebrity as it is now, you know, like where you can get all these endorsements and stuff. But just playing the sport didn't make that much money. And I'll never forget it. Like when I heard that, it could have been completely false too. I just remember somebody like, they don't even make any money. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like it was as sad as that is. I'm like, oh, they make no money. Not interested.
Interesting.
Because I knew I wanted to make money. Like that was a big, as much as I love that sport, I was like, if they're not paying, you know what I mean?
Even
like,
at that age.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool.
We'll get into that. Yeah. I just knew I wanted to make money. Like I'd just do those odd jobs. Like my parents were cool. Like they never, you know, like they would give me things like once in a while, but it was more so like whatever you want, like go get it. And like you have to work for it. So at an early age, I was just like going to make money, like doing whatever I could, like selling candy bars, mowing a lawn or something, like anything I could do to like make money and then go buy my own shit. That was it.
What age did that start at?
Oh man, probably like 10.
Yeah,
Something
cool.
like that. Yeah, I was young.
Yeah,
I was actually, funny enough, I used to pick up dog shit straight up. Like that was one of like, people had dogs in yards. I'd go and knock on their door like $10 a week and I'll pick up the dog shit.
Yeah.
Like I didn't care. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like I just wanted to make money. I didn't care what it was.
Yeah.
So I did.
Great.
I was a pooper scooper, man.
Hey.
We were scooping up poop.
Poopity scoop. You could have wrote that Kanye song. Cool. Well, what was the segue, I guess, or how did things build from kind of almost like those small jobs to your first job?
So I used to ride my bike to school in junior high. Elementary, obviously, would just like take the bus. But my parents, so how it kind of happened is, me and my mom lived in like a little apartment, and she met my dad. Then we moved into like kind of like a townhome, kind of like on the east side of St. Paul. I'm trying to think of the cross street. I can't think of it at the moment. Actually, it was kind of off of like McKnight. Moved into that, and then we moved in. From there, they started like making some money, so we moved into kind of a suburb, which was nice. But it was right next to the junior high. So even at that age, I would ride my bike to school. And then again, I knew I wanted to make money. And so there was a pizza shop, Devani's Pizza. If any listeners know, they know exactly best brownies in the world. If you know, you know, kind of a thing. But yeah, man, I just went there and did prep. You had laws like child labor laws, where you could only work like 4 hours a day. I would max out all my time, but I'd go from school if I didn't have practice or something that day. I played actually football even during that time. I was quarterback. And if we didn't have practice or whatever, I would just go like work. I'd just go bike to work, go do that. And then, come ride my bike all the way back. But that was like my first legitimate, like, all right, we're paying taxes. I was 13. I'll never forget it, because I think that's when you were legal to like have a real job. I did construction even when I was young, because my dad had a construction company. So like 10, 11, 12, 13, during the summers, I would just work with him. And I'll never forget it. Oh my God, that's a funny story. I didn't even think about that. One of the times, this adult, is a full adult man, right? He's probably like 25, 26, 27. Some punk ass. I'm like 13, 12, 13, whatever it is. And he dropped a sledgehammer on my foot.
Oh, nice.
On the job. You know, we were like pouring concrete and shit. And even at that age, I didn't care. Like, I just didn't care. He had so much size on, I didn't care. I went to punch him and I socked him and broke my hand. I literally broke my hand, had to go get stitches or not stitches. It's called boxer splint. Basically, where you don't have a tight enough fist. So you break your hand pretty much like right here. And I knew it was broke because I couldn't move my hand. Like I just couldn't move it. And I'm like, oh, I think I fucked myself up. So I took some sticks, some tape, taped it up, worked the rest of the day, and then went and got cast and all that. couldn't play sports for like a month or two, something like that. But yeah, I was always working. Like I always just wanted to make money. But that was like my first legitimate, by the book as far as the pizza shop is concerned.
Sure.
But yeah, other than that, I was still doing like odd jobs around the neighborhood, just trying to make money.
Cool. Where'd that lead? What was next?
Well, we actually moved to Michigan. So I lived in Michigan, went from junior high, moved to Michigan for a couple years. That was a weird time. That was such a weird time because it's like I already had everyone I grew up with and they were just moving. And that was like a whole cluster shit show too, because the house that they built had mold damage from the builders. And so, man, that was messy, man. So like that was like a whole 2-year ordeal dealing with that. It had like mold everywhere. They went to court for like 2 years or whatever. Ugh. The builder was just a complete snake. Screwed him over. Long story short, like they pretty much lost everything. It's like back to square one. So moved back to the Twin Cities when I was 16 or 17, probably 17. And then it was kind of cool because it's like I knew all my friends here and still had my friend,
sure,
my my friend base and everything. But yeah, I still talk to a few close friends from Michigan. One of them we actually just saw. Shout out to Shane. Shane's
awesome.
A good man.
Yeah,
that's like
shout
a day
out
one.
To Shane.
Yeah, that's
cool.
A day one. He's a good man. So we would do it. Like that's when I actually got really into cars. So I met him through cars. So I met him when I was like maybe 15 on a forum, and yeah, like that was history. Like we would always just go back and forth. We'd do like car rallies going to Detroit, and we were just young kids, man, just like driving like hooligans, basically.
What kind of cars?
I've had a lot of cars, but my favorite
in that era, and like what was like the forum kind of initial like falling in love with cars, so talking to people about cars.
If you know cars, I was a DSM guy.
Okay.
So Mitsubishi Eclipse, Fast and Furious shit.
Sure.
Like you probably remember, everyone knows that car.
Yeah.
I had one of those. 4G63 motor, probably one of the best 4 banging engines ever made. Like they pump like 1,000 horsepower out of these things. God, and it's a 4 banger. It's just like, it's insanity. I still remember a friend of mine. We had like a rally in Detroit, and he let me drive his Evo, which now looking hindsight, I'm like, this guy's a maniac for letting me drive like 1,000 horsepower Evo at that time. Cause I was like, I drive fast cars, but like there's a whole new level for me, and it was stick. So we're driving, he's like, we're like first gear kind of a thing. And I'm like, one hand here, other on the shifting. He's like, you're going to want to use 2 hands. And I'm like, what do you mean? So he's like, you'll see, just use 2 hands, please. And so first gear didn't even exist. It was just like, ring, like hit the red line. Like now I'm like, oh shit. And then the car just started torque steering like crazy. And that's what he meant by 2 hands. Cause I wasn't used to that was the first crazy powerful car I ever drove. And, that opened my eyes to like, all right, I need to drive cars, man. Like this, I need to get to that level. Because mine wasn't built up like that. But yeah, Eclipses, Talons were a thing. I never had a Talon. I had the Eclipse. You had like the Talon, which was kind of like the cheaper Eclipse. But I had a lot of cars back then, man. I had like my Eclipse. I had like a shitty winter, like Honda Accord 4-door, just like a POS. Like I think I spent like $500 on it just to go through the winters because I didn't want to drive the Eclipse in the winter.
Sure.
That's when I started like getting into cars. And then from there, when we moved back, the same thing, man. I was just like making money, like by any means. Like I was buying electronics from Shenzhen and like China, sending them here, buying in bulk. Oh my God, actually I take that back. I was doing that in Michigan. So I'd get these boxes of just electronics, headphones, memory card, like whatever I could get my hands on, send them over here. It's like parents are like, what the hell is this like big ass box on the porch? Nothing in English. And I'm like, oh, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then I'd just go and sell them. I'd either sell them online or go sell them in person. I was just trying to sell anything, man. Like anything like that I could get my hands on. So China was a big one when I moved back. Same thing, doing the same thing, like buying a bunch of electronics. There was a time where I was buying like memory cards and trying to make them look dope. So I took at this time I had another car, an Eclipse GSX, which still to this day, that car was so clean. If I could find a picture and show you, like dude, that car was awesome. It was peanut butter inside, jelly outside. That shit was hard.
Nice.
I don't care what anybody says. That shit was hard. Like all internal, like no appearance wise, it wasn't crazy. Like I kept it very stock because some people went nuts with their cars, and I was like, no, I want engine. Like I want to be the sleeper like you don't expect. So like Gretty, everything under the hood. Thing was loud, like crazy loud, apexy exhaust, like ring, like the blow off valve was obnoxiously loud.
That's like one of the best parts about a turbo, though. That's like the most satisfying sound ever.
In the winter, you just go like drift around, and it was just like, like it was reliving that now. I'm like, damn, that was a cool ass car. But yeah, so I would take pictures of that, put them on memory cards, and like brand my own memory cards, basically, and go sell them in the street.
17,
Phones.
18, 16?
Yeah, 17. I was selling
Awesome.
electronics all over the place in high school. So I went to Tartan High School for my senior year, and I would always be selling like phones. I was like that guy, you open your jacket, like, what do you need? I got, that was me. And there's so many people that can vouch for that. Like, that was me. I was the guy with the phones that you knew the connect. That was me. So I just started selling like phones, iPhones. So not going to incriminate myself, but I would take iPhones and make them awesome and then go sell them. And I made amazing money with that. And
sick.
One of the times I actually got set up, which forever, like never forget that, obviously. Central High School in St. Paul, if you know kind of a thing. Not a great area. I went by myself to sell phones and got jumped at gunpoint. It was like me versus like 4 guys. Got out of the car, and like I was even suspicious. Like I knew something wasn't right. And I was like watching people are like driving by. I'm like, something ain't right here, but I'm by myself. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I knew it was coming. Like I knew the setup was coming, but I'm like, oh, I'm fucked here. You know what I mean? Like, like I have a feeling this is not going to go the way I want it to go. But the funny thing is I had 3 phones on me, and I only let them take 1. And they're like, what else you got? I'm like, I ain't got shit, man. That's it. You got 1? That was it. Let alone I had 2. But you ain't getting all my shit. Like I'm not giving it up. But yeah, that sucked. Yeah, never forget
growing
that.
pains, man. Growing pains.
That was a growing pain. Because at that point, I kind of took it. I was like, thank God, I was okay. But I was like, cost of business, man. Like I made enough money to where I'm like, well, you're gonna take an L sometimes.
Sure.
But that was one of those L's.
How were you sourcing electronics like that from like in that age?
Good question. I was up till like 1 a.m. because of the time difference. Supposed to be paying attention in school. Didn't. I was math, amazing. Math like A+. I love numbers. Which makes sense now, right?
It's funny when you look back on certain things like that and you realize like, oh man, connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, okay, numbers, math guy, you might do good in this. So I loved math. I love science because I love experimenting with things. So all that kind of stuff was cool. All the other stuff, didn't really care about, didn't do very well at. I've told this story a few times, but history, funny enough, was there was only like one. So high school, funny enough, I was really good with politics in high school. So I didn't have like, I was good with everyone. You know what I mean? Like every clique I was cool with, like I just kind of was that guy. Like I didn't stay with one group. Like I was cool with everyone. Vice principals, like all cool with them. Politics, man. Like I knew who to like be cool with and like make sure we're good. Even the cops, like made sure we were good with them. Like I didn't want no problems with them. So, we just kind of be good with everyone. And there was one time where this teacher I almost didn't graduate high school. Like realistically, I shouldn't have graduated high school, but it worked out. But yeah, my history teacher cornered me at the end of the year in his classroom because he tried to screw me on some classes and fail me. And so, I just tried to make him admit, that he fucked me. And that turned into, him destroying his desk, flipping his desk over, cornering me in the classroom. He was a wrestling coach too. So when it was happening, I'm like, man, this is going to hurt because I'm about to get my ass kicked. Like at that point I was like, well, let me just close my eyes and get ready for the pain because I was like waiting for it. So yeah, that was a whole ordeal because he tried to fail me. And if I failed that, I would have failed high school. It was like the one thing I needed to like pass. And luckily it worked out. I'm not going to go into it, but it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah, we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically like up till finishing high school.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about college?
Yeah, so I went to, funny enough, so kind of backtracking a little bit, I was making beats on Fruity Loops in Michigan. So
still in high school?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So I was messing around with Fruity Loops long ass time ago. basically remixing stuff. You know what I mean? Like I would take a song, it could have been like 50 Cent in the club or like some crime mob joint, and I would just try to remix it, like just make it cool, like add different things into it. So that kind of got me into music in that sense. Like I was like, man, music, like this is it. This is what I want to do. I love doing it. Not to flip flop too much, but you were asking about sourcing because I kind of got off track. I would stay up till like 1 a.m. and talk to them on Alibaba before Alibaba was like a household name. And that's how I would source and just wait, go back and forth, get samples. But I had to be up at like, I know that's why I got sidetracked because we were talking about school. So I wasn't paying attention to school because I was doing that and talking to them at like 1 or 2 a.m. So then fast forward to, what were we talking about?
College.
That's right. Music. So I was making beats on Fruity Loops or whatever. And then in Minnesota, we had a school called IPR, which is the Institute of Production and Recording. So I went to that. And
after high school?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. So I jumped in there. I moved downtown, moved to North Loop in Minneapolis, First Street. And I actually moved in like right when I graduated. Like I had my papers signed and everything to move into that place. And I got crazy lucky on that place, man. Like it was like basketball players lived there. The Minnesota Wild hockey players lived there. I got crazy lucky at one of those like income restricted type of joints. And so like 18 years old living in this loft studio downtown, I'm like, yo, this is badass. Like it doesn't get much cooler than this, like right out of high school. And it was right across like 2 blocks away from school.
Oh, sweet.
So it was perfect. You know what I mean? Like do all my work, whatever, go there. So yeah, I just learned how to engineer like properly and like record properly. Pro Tools, like massive master mix studios, like Prince recorded a lot of music there. So we kind of learned on like the good shit.
Yeah.
Like Pro Tools, Acom boards, like, you know, like it was great stuff, you know? So I learned how to do everything properly there. Meanwhile, I was still like making music and stuff. And that's when I started connecting making my LA network when I was like 18.
Okay.
17 or 18. So that's kind of like when Twitter very first started.
Okay.
And it's funny enough about Twitter, we were so early on that thing, man. Like there was a few of us that were just so early. Shout out to Maestro. You know Maestro. 3P, Lil Wayne. You know Maestro. It was like me, him, and like a few other guys that like kind of went on there. I met him through that. I met a lot of people like through there. And then I would fly out to LA and just kind of link up with people.
Sweet.
So I had built my like friend base kind of out here before I even moved out here. So it was already like pretty strong. So I would like send beats back and forth, you know, and it was cool. Like Twitter was like a cool community for producers back in the day. It's like, it was before anyone was like really doing anything kind of. So you just like share ideas, you know, like send beats back and forth and like just, you know, just, is it cool? Is it not? Like
Sure.
Get clowned if it's terrible. You know what I mean? Like people will let you
get,
know.
Like, feedback and get a little circle of, you know.
It was basically like a small circle. Because before that, there wasn't really anywhere to communicate. You know, like before Twitter and all that, there was nowhere to communicate. So if like you liked music, you know, if you were early, that was the place to be. I did some interning for Def Jam at that time too, kind of like street. God, I can't even think of what it was, like marketing, street team type stuff with Def Jam. So that was cool.
Was that when you first moved out here, or that was still?
No, that was in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we would just like share beats like back and forth and kind of just get feedback, and that's kind of how we like grew our networks at that time, you know. And it's cool because looking back at that now, it's like there's a lot of people that like did very well with it, and it's cool because it's like you saw, you know, like when they started and just made it happen.
Sure.
You know, which is pretty awesome. Like that's when I met Shane. Actually put me on to like Veggies back in the day. So Shane was like, yo, you gotta mess with Casey. Like him, Josh, and Anwar, they're doing some really cool shit out there. And we were like kids now looking back. Like we were just 18,
sure,
like 19. We're just kids. Casey at the time probably was like 15, 16 or something like that, if not younger. So yeah, we just send beats back and forth and share beats. Hit Boy, for example, same thing. I'll never forget this because he, like, out of all the people during that time, like his story's so cool because I remember sending beats back and forth, like just trying to get feedback. And there was one point where he was just like down. He's just like, man, nobody sees the vision. Like nobody understands it. Like he almost wanted to quit type of thing. And it's cool to see like where it's at now. You know what I mean? Like that's the coolest to see. That is amazing, because there was at one point he's like, nah, like imagine if he just quit. Like the music would be robbed of like so much amazing, especially now. The run that he's going on now is insane.
Yeah.
Like, he's just killing the game. Like bringing Nas back into the picture. Like it's crazy. And it sounds like fresh. Like it's not, it's amazing. It's incredible. So it's cool to see, you know, like from that time, there's a lot of people that like popped off that like stuck with it and kind of did their thing. So like I'll always give him props for that, because he could have quit, but you know, he didn't. And then I'll never forget too, because he said, because I was, again, money mindset. I was like, yo, just get in the charts, man. Like, just get the money, get the money. Like, that's where my mind was at. Like, just get the money. And he's just like, no, like, fuck the money. Like, I want charts. Like, I want to do it for the culture. And I'm like, and that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah. You know, he got all the chart, got the money, cool. And then he's like, all right, done with that. Let me just do like what I'm passionate about, with the people I'm passionate about. So his story, out of the people that I was around during that time, his is the best. You know, like his story is incredible. Yeah. Even South by during that time, like when I was 18, 19, 20, South by was awesome. That was back when it was like the West Side show, for example, in the Dirty Six area of Austin. There was a West Coast show, like Bun B was there. The first time I met Bun B, like the most humble guy you've ever met. He was just super nice, like listens to you. Like it was crazy. Bun's a good dude. Like he's super humble. Would have never expected that. Snoop was there. Dom was performing. There was a bunch of West Coast artists at that time. Yeah, that was good.
Was that like 2011, something like that, or was that even earlier?
We'll see. If I was like 19, it was probably 13 years. So
even earlier?
Not 99. 2009. 2009.
Oh yeah, I guess it could have been as far back as that. I'm trying to think of the first time I went down there too.
Austin was South by during that time was like awesome, because you could just be next to your like favorite artist at that time. Granted, they weren't popping like they may be now, but it was like intimate. You know, they might be performing a show. Like there was time like Wiz would be performing a show in front of like fucking 30 people. Yeah. You know, and like you'd just be right there next to the stage, just chilling. Like it was nothing. And that's how it was back then. And now it's just corporate. You know, it's just kind of like, let's make it big and make money. And I don't even think it's like popping really. It's more tech now. Yeah. Like now they're talking about crypto. Yeah. You know, like it's all crypto, Web3 type stuff. So it's like, is it even about music anymore?
I think it's like music is now booked as like the entertainment part of the South by Southwest experience. You know, like you get the big, almost like 5,000 audience crowd performance. It's not like about the, 30, 50, 70 people in a bar somewhere. Yep. You know, that I remember that era too. That was awesome.
It was an awesome era to be. Like Acom, for example, at the time, Acom was popping. Like he was one of those like big names. Could walk up, met him like it was nothing. Like you can't do that anymore. There was a time when Mike Posner, he was performing, and I think his manager, I want to say Ben or something, I can't remember. I hit him up on Twitter like, oh, you guys are having a show at this show, like, can I slide through? He's like, yeah, come through. So we'd like go through the back door, like right there next to the stage. Like you can't do that anymore. Yeah. Like it's not a thing, unless you already like unless you really know somebody already, nobody's doing that. So like for music, that was an era. Like that was truly an era. Yeah. That I don't think will happen again.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at, that point in time. And I've been looking back through just like, what I've been kind of witnessing as almost like a historian since I started, and it got weird after like 2013, 2014, especially for South by Southwest. It just kind of like faded into a whole different experience going down there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there'll be anything like that. I just don't, it's weird. Like that whole era, like blog music, that whole era, it's just like, I feel old now. It's just like I'm only 32, but like damn, like that was 10 years ago. Like, that was a whole era, man. Like
it really was.
Blog era was, if you were there, you were there. You know what I mean? Like if you were outside, you were outside during that time. It was a time to be on it. Yeah, man, that was good stuff. I think like Two Dope Boys used to put on shows or something like that. There was a bunch of big blogs that used to. Oh, actually, shout out to JD. JD, he had a hip hop update, so I was posting for him. So I'd like do interviews. Oh, funny enough, now I think about it, I didn't even think about it. That was, so he just wanted like extra content, right? And he had a popular blog. And so I would just interview like random artists. So I remember like interviewing a long ass time ago. Now I think about like Gilly the Kid from Philly. That's the first time I spoke to Nipsey. So Steve Lobel, you probably know him, OG. I met him, was able to do like an interview with Nip. If I could get that, man, I wish there's got to be like like a MP3 of that. So that was cool. Like just talking to him about that, and like he did it. Like he lived. That was before he was like really popping, and he did everything he said he was going to do.
Yeah, he was like our era's great manifester.
Yeah.
He was somebody who really like actually spoke about what the intentions were there. What he spoke about was like literally just, we were all along the journey watching this dude just manifest all the shit he was talking about. And like provide the education along the way. Like I feel like that's one of the people I reference a lot when you think about like making an impact and why is like, it was very educational. It was very inspiring. Like there's so many elements that he was able to just piece together. And it was just like, fuck man, how could you not want this dude to win?
Yeah. Absolutely. There was nothing. He was just inspiring. You know, it's just like you had two sides of it. Jeezy, which Thug Motivation 101 was like, that was repeat. High school, like that's when I was making money. Like that was on repeat. You know what I mean? Like that was the hustler music. Like let me go make some money. And then you had Nip, which is more of like blueprint, like own your shit. You know, like own your business, equity type stuff. So Jeezy and Nip, in my opinion, were kind of like big in that sense because Jeezy motivated a lot of people, but then Nip was kind of doing like the blueprint stuff. Like he mapped it all out for everyone, and nobody else was really doing that.
Yeah.
Not like
agree.
that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. That's yeah.
So you moved out here in what, 2022 years old?
I want to say I was like 21.
Okay.
Like 21.
And you were solely focused on music when you were here?
Yeah.
Like the move was like, I'm going there to do music.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, another funny story is, so when I was flying, going back and forth to California, sometimes I go to San Francisco. So I'd go to San Francisco and I'd meet up with my boy Mozzie at the time, which was, he was working for Ustream. Again, time, if you know kind of a thing. Because he was getting everyone on Ustream. Like all the artists, he would get them on Ustream. So he got everyone. Like Lil Wayne has mentioned him before, like in stuff. Like I joked, like took a sound clip and made it like his like producer tag, even though he wasn't like producing. But so anyways, I was always going to San Francisco to hang out with Mozzie. And then one night he goes, hey, we're going to go like downtown and like, cause I was in Daly City, I think.
I lived there for 9 months.
Really?
I fucking hated that area.
Yeah, we would stay at a spot in Daly City.
Funny coincidence.
Yeah. And so it was him. They had like a house, like a Ustream house, basically. Kind of like, you know, if you had like a influencer house here, it was like that, but it was like a Ustream house. So just a few Ustream employees. And so we went downtown, and I'll never forget it because we stop at the St. Regis. Again, I'm young, right? Like I haven't seen money before. And I'm like, well, like, why are we St. Regis? And he goes, he lives here. I'm like, what the hell? I was like, who is this? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? I knew that costs a lot of money. Like I knew St. Regis was an expensive place. Like what the hell is going on?
Who's living here?
Yeah. Who's living here? Who's your friend? Right. So we go through like 2 sets of security to go to this residence. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like tweaking. I'm like, what is, like, I've never seen anything like this, right? I've never been in a St. Regis in my life. So door opens up and it's like this kid, and we go in, and it was just, to me, it was mind blowing, right? Place smelled like Kush. Like, I mean, I'm like, what is going on here? You're like 15 and you have that. My mind was like blown. My mind's melting as this is happening. And it's him and like 2 guys at the kitchen table, and they're like just all jamming away, working or whatever. And I just kind of kept my cool. I'm like, all right, you know, I'm just here, right? Like I'm just in the room. And so I kind of like read the room for a little bit, and like 45 minutes in, I'm like, so like Harrison, like, what do you do? Like, I'm just curious, what do you do? And he's like, oh, we like advertising online. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like I didn't want to pry. Like I just wanted to play my role. Like, all right, that's cool. Just curious. Cause that in my mind, I'm like, you're like some mobster's kid or some shit. You know what I mean? Like that's what it looked like, you know, like St. Regis, that place had to have been, You know, oh, actually, I take that back. He didn't own it. He was renting it. It was like $10K a month.
Yeah. I was going to say, I would assume that's like almost like a minimum.
Yeah. And I'm like, how? You know, like you're like 16 years old, because he was at that time. He was crazy young. And funny enough, I met him like one more time, and I just talked to him actually about this. And I was like, yeah, I remember that one time, because he used to wear a bunch of diamonds. Like he was extremely like loud with all this stuff. So we had a bodyguard. It was me, him, and his bodyguard. And we walked to this sushi spot. Again, I'm like, what the fuck is my life? You know what I mean? Like you're 16 with probably $250,000 of jewelry on, and we have a bodyguard. I'm like, where the fuck am I?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? So we go to the sushi spot. Mind you, I have no money, right? Like I'm just kind of traveling, just here and there, like making money, like kind of spending it, basically making money, spending it, making more money, spending it. And so I don't have like much money. So we go to this really nice sushi restaurant, and he's like, you know, like, oh, get whatever you want kind of a thing. And I'm just like, no, I'm cool. Like, I'm not going to be that guy that orders a bunch of food and then like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, I'm not paying for any of this. So here I am getting like the cheapest sushi roll they have. He's over here getting like the full plate, like nigiri, sashimi, like all the good shit. And the bill comes, and I'm trying to remember like if he forgot his wallet or some shit. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. I'm like, I don't even know if my card's going to go through on this transaction, because that was like hundreds of dollars, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I might get declined here. I don't know. We'll find out. And so I ended up paying for that meal. Mind you, I had like nothing.
Sure.
And I just talked to him about that, which is hilarious, because he's like, yeah, I did that on I did that on purpose. You know, it builds character. I'm like, you're a dick. I was like, but it was funny because he did that. And then at like a month or two later, he hit me up. He's like, you want to work for me? I'm like, yeah, like, of course I do. Like, look where you're living. Look at like the lifestyle you have. Absolutely, I want to work for you. And the rest is history. So I started working from him remotely. And so when I moved out here, going back to your original question, when I moved out here, I was doing that remotely. I was just making money online with him, like helping him out, doing biz dev for his company. And yeah, I mean, that was it. So I was out here basically like making music, kind of like meeting with my network of people that I knew, and then working. Granted, kind of working took a lot over, because I just realized the potential there.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, there's a small window of opportunity here. I really want to make this money. Granted, I'm here to make music. So it was always a balancing act of trying to do both. But you know, I still like made music. It was funny because the vinyl, Casey Veggie's the Sleeping in Class, I did the outro of that, all live instrumentation. That was like a big deal for me, because to me, I'm like, yo, Casey's dope. You know what I mean? Like that whole, again, if you were there, that era was amazing. And then the biggest deal, because it was on vinyl. We got it on vinyl through Delicious Vinyl. So that was a really cool, it was cool. I'm like, all right, cool. I came out here, like I got on vinyl, like that's cool. Actually, like the first 2 or 3 weeks I moved here, Danny, Top Shelf Jr., he's done like a bunch of videos for like Janae, but a lot of local artists, Dom Kennedy, obviously, you know, you're familiar with. I'm surprised if you probably know Danny. I'm assuming you have. He put me on to like an opportunity, like right out the gates. Like I'm forever grateful for him for that, because he legitimately actually got me my first check in LA.
Awesome.
Because he was doing a commercial, like a shoe commercial for, I want to say it was Shaq or something, because there was Gary Payton in the commercial, Shaq or something like that, and I did all the post on it.
Killer.
Like all the like Foley and everything. So like that was, to me, I'm like, moved to LA. I remember it was like $1,000 or like $1,200 like that. To me, I'm like, yo, hell yeah. Like,
yeah.
I can do this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, let me just do it. Like, cause I even wanted to score. Like to this day, I still want to score like movies or TV shows or commercials or something like that. Like I do like that. I mean, music is great. Don't get me wrong, but I think I would rather, if I had to choose, I would probably score, you know, like, and do that kind of stuff, because, it's just big sound, you
Sure.
know, like big sound, orchestra, symphony type stuff. And I like that.
Is that something you have like formal training with?
A little bit,
Like
because I
composing?
did, well, not composing generally. Funny enough. So I went to school for like production and
Sure.
like engineering and mixing, but I did a lot of music theory there too. I'm not traditionally, I didn't practice any instruments, but for me, I always went off of sound, you know? So it's like, as simple as that sounds, like if I was making music or anything, you know, putting chords together it either sounds good or it doesn't. It
Sure.
sounds off or it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't like, oh, let me put the F and the G and the C to get like,
Yeah.
I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm the
does it
same
sound
way.
good or not?
Yeah.
You know, like kind of like, let's just get to the point.
Yeah.
And so I did some of that. So I did post at school, and that's kind of where I learned to do that. And then like right when I moved here, I had that opportunity. I'm like, all right, this is cool. Like I could do this. And for me, that was a big deal, you know, because it's like Gary Payton, Shaq, all these people for the shoe. So yeah, shout out to Danny. Danny got me my first check in LA.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so you're going through, actually I wanted to ask about the advertising. What was like the specific type of work you guys were doing?
So it was like lead generation, for example. If you're familiar, like if, for example, True Studios, right? Say you're trying to, say you don't have business or you're just trying to scale. It probably wouldn't work maybe for brick and mortar, but like Netflix, let me just put it in Netflix terms. Netflix, if they know their LTV, which is lifetime value of a customer is $100, let's just say that's where their data is showing, they might give you like $10 to bring somebody on board. So, and that would just be like a lead, just for a simple lead, like your name and email type of thing. Now, if your lead quality shit, they're going to say, we're not paying you, like your leads suck. But if they're converting, then they just keep going, you know? So then we would just buy ads anywhere. There's Google, like MySpace, anywhere you would basically buy ads. And if I could acquire the customer for less than $10, I'm profitable. So if it costs me $5 in ads and I'm making 10, I'm making $5, you know, spread. And if you scale that online, you know, you can make money. Like that's really where it started. So funny enough, my first campaign I ever really ran was like dating stuff. So, I can't even think like Cupid, like OkCupid type stuff. Like when they were trying to get into app installs heavy, like same thing. We would just try to drive installs to these apps. It didn't matter what it was, but dating was always like it's like dating, health, like the top
Sure.
niches that will forever, they're evergreen is what they call it. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to dominate. That's where like I started doing that, or starting like running ads like on my own. That was like a big thing. And again, if your lead quality is shit, they'll let you know because everything's tracked. They know exactly where good traffic is coming from and not, you know, bad traffic. So yeah, that was kind of what we were doing. Just basically, like lead generation, if it was sales, because back then it was a lot of app installs. So app installs kind of dominated, whether it was dating. I'm trying to think of the other. God, it's been such a long time. I just remember that was like a big one, like gaming, stuff like that. Lead generation for these services, because back then, like Netflix, like they were kind of, you know, brand, like it wasn't popping like it is now. So
Sure.
like things like Netflix were big back in the day, as far as, you know, them running like direct response or like paying us to run ads and make money. But yeah, I mean, it was just a bunch of stuff. App installs were the thing though back then. That was like the main
that was
thing.
the gold rush, you know.
Well, yeah, because like iPhones were pretty new. Like that's
Mobile
where
app.
they wanted to be. They wanted to be on everyone's phone. So that was kind of like a gold rush during that time of app installs, and dating just happened to be like the biggest niche.
Sure.
So yeah, that's where that came from.
And so you're doing that, you're doing music, and where does that then lead to as you transition? You stay running that for a few years?
Yeah, so funny enough, that company went bust.
Okay.
And it couldn't have happened at a better time because I started just running my own ads and it was working, you know? So it was kind of like, you know, I learned the business inside and out, and then I started, you know, doing my own thing. And it was it was like literally perfect. Like I had my first really good profitable campaign, and, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, the other owner of that business, again, and it's crazy because to this day, I still don't know like what exactly happened. Like I was in the business, but I don't know like executive decisions that are being handled. But yeah, that business went defunct, and he's like, yeah, letting you go, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, that's cool because it's working. You know what I mean? Like I don't need the job really, you know, but working remote, like I've worked remote now like since then. Like I haven't had a job since then, like a job, you know what I mean? Like I've always worked from home, you know, so like funny, like COVID working from home, so it's like we've been doing that, you know, like it's how it should be. You know, it's productive. You're extremely productive at home. If you have bills to pay, it doesn't matter if you're in an office or at home, you're gonna work, you know, kind of a thing, which is they think people are more productive in you know, like in a office. I don't think so, because we're pretty productive at home, you know, because you have to be.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously you've been a self-starter and like ambitious person since like 12 years
Yeah.
old. So
Yeah.
you're probably more a unique breed from people who've been conditioned to just be in an office space, and that's the only way they can associate even doing
Yeah.
work. So I could see the argument on both sides. It's just a mentality you have to break through to actually understand, like, oh, I don't need to go drive, especially like an hour and a half to my
Yeah.
job and an hour and a half home and kill 3 hours of my day.
Yeah.
Like gas,
Kudos. I
time,
mean,
all that shit, like
Kudos to people that do that.
want to
because
do that.
I worked retail, for example. Actually, now that I think about it, like I worked retail when I was like 16, I think like 17, something like that. So yeah, I mean, like I've done the shit you didn't want to do, but I was like, that was all like I kind of was doing, at the point, like I just had to do that. I wasn't introduced to the online world yet. It's like that was a whole, like, I'm telling you, it's so crazy when you get that like first check for making money and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't have to go into an office and I got paid and I worked from home. You'll never forget that. Like,
Sure.
It's one of those things you're like, whoa, this is real. Because you hear about it, but you're like, how? Because back then, that was when you see like a lot of scammy ads like, oh, make money online working 1 minute a day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm like, no, this is bullshit. But when it actually like was working kind of like that for me, I'm like, oh, wow, like this is real money. It's not play money. Like there's real, like money hits a bank. You know, like it's real. So that was cool. Yeah.
Amazing. And so you're doing all that. You're starting your kind of own lead into the ad business. And how does that progress? Like where does that lead to?
I mean, funny enough. So that I basically started my own business, obviously, because it was working out for me. So I had my own ad business, doing pretty much the same thing, but just doing it for myself. Still trying to like find time to make music on the side. And I still was. And even then, like, I think creatives have that problem as far as like trying to be a perfectionist. So a lot of people don't hear your shit. Like I would just keep stuff to myself unless it was like just perfect. Then I would send it out and try to like get placed somewhere. This was actually back in Minneapolis. And I still think about this to this day because I'm like, I wonder where my life would be if this placement landed. And it's probably good it didn't, because I was just an idiot back then, just a kid. I definitely would have probably signed a terrible contract. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just guessing at that time. Because I was sending beats to Sean Barron, who was at Atlantic. Shout outs to Sean. He's an amazing, amazing dude. So I was sending music to him, and there was one beat that he really liked that would have worked for Flow Rider. So he sent it to Mike Karen at Atlantic, and it was kind of like up to him, like whether like, is this gonna place? Is this gonna work or not? And I just remember being like, man, please place. Because if this is on a Flow Rider, it's like, boom, we're out of here. You know what I mean? Like there's your paycheck, because you only need that one hit.
Yep.
And it didn't place, unfortunately, but I'm trying to think of the song that it was for, and I can't think of the song, but it was during that time, one of his biggest hits. It was during that time where like I sent that beat and it was like, no, it was this one instead of this one. And I don't know. I still think about that to this day because I'm like, man, that would have been, who knows? You know what I mean? Like I would have been out here under a contract, like maybe loved it, maybe hated it. I don't know. It would have been just a totally different avenue.
Life path. Yep.
Yeah, it just would have been way different. But yeah, I was just out here, like doing that. I traveled a lot. Still have my network here, like still trying to make music here and there when I could. That's actually when I started trading, was during that time. And that's when I want to say it was like 2014 is when I started trading. And I was always, the funny thing to start about trading is if somebody asks like, what got you into it or what made you want to do it? So the movie Wall Street, Charlie Sheen, Michael Douglas, I remember seeing that movie and I'm like, oh shit. Again, like money motivated, right? And like that was Wall Street. Like it's just purely kind of about Wall Street and making money. At that time, I didn't realize Gordon Gekko was like just a complete piece of shit. But I'm like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even though he's a terrible person, I didn't connect the dots till now I'm older. I'm like, what did he do with that airline? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He like fucked everyone and took all the money. Okay, I understood. But I knew just how he like portrayed himself in that movie. Like, I was like, I want to do that.
Sure.
But yeah, it was because of that where I got into trading. And so a bunch of us, we had like a small group. We would just trade like penny stocks and bullshit and just kind of learn the ropes then. And yeah, we took a lot of L's, man, because we would just hold and hold and hold, kind of like we would never take profit. You know, like that was our big thing, kind of like how people are now today with crypto and, you know, the HODL gang and shit. It was the same thing. You know, we just never sold. And it's just like, again, maybe a different life path, because at that time, you know, I had money to really work with, and I was just being stupid with it trading, because I would never take profit. I'm like, no, if this goes to $100,
sure,
we're rich forever.
Yeah.
You know? Like stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
And so we learned real quickly, but it was good to learn that extremely early, because that happened within like the first 6 months, you know, year of trading. I learned early on, like, okay, that's the way not to do it. But yeah, that kind of started, you know, into trading. Like that got my foot into the door. Like, yeah, I want to do this, and like this is dope. And advertising was cool. Tried to start another business. I won't even get into that. I basically went all in on that one, completely bust. I've started at ground zero many times in my life, and I'm okay with it, because I don't know, I'm a risk taker. I'm okay with it because I might be jaded, but it's also, I've said this before. If you've never had like a win under your belt in professional life, like financial, we always think like we can't attain it, right? Like me going to that friend's house, like what am I seeing here? Mm-hmm. Like, is this real? Like you just see things on TV and you're like, oh, they're rich, they're wealthy. You never think you can have it, especially growing up a certain way. You think like it's not possible. Like there's just the haves and haves not kind of thing. Well, have and have not kind of thing. So I just figured like, yeah, you know, there's rich people and there are people that are not rich. And you just think that can't happen. But then when you finally get like a big win, you're like, oh, wow, this is a reality. You can actually make money. If it wasn't for that, it's hard to have that mindset to being okay, not being okay, but like taking risks to where if it works out, you're good. If it doesn't, do it again, you know, but a lot of people don't have that one win under their belt. And mentally that's, you know, like, I think we've all been there. Like before you get your first big break, it's like I mentioned before, like nobody sees my vision. Nobody understands, you know, it's like until you get your big break, you know, and they're like, okay, this is possible. So if you do lose it all, you've done it. You can do it again. I hate to be like cringe and say it's a mindset thing, but like it kind of is, you know, like as cringe as that phrase is and how funny it is. Cause a lot of like scammers online, you're just like, oh, it's a mindset thing. Like, yeah. It kind of is, you know what I mean? Like as weird as it is, like, but you have to live it to really understand it, because it's important to have that confidence and conviction that you can do it over and over and over. Like Jay-Z said it, right? Put me anywhere in the world. You know, triple my worth. Like same thing. Yeah. Take it all away. Give me a few years and you'll make it work. Yeah. You know, so I mean, yeah.
So did you have anybody that was like advising you in any capacity when you started trading? What was like the initial, just like I'm setting up an account with TD Ameritrade and literally just funding that shit and looking around for whatever I think
that's it
sounds good and just buying it.
There was no like mentors around. There was only a couple like people out there that were kind of doing the mentorship thing, but there weren't a lot. You know, if anything, it was just a bunch of scammers like trying to pitch penny stocks and pink sheets, which was, you know, that's a fool's game. You know, it's like people front run that stuff. You know, they'll accumulate a bunch and then they'll just go push it. Newsletter blasts were a thing. Like people would pay $50K for a newsletter blast to 100,000 people, but people that paid $50K already accumulated. So they spend the 50 as a business expense, like it's cost of business, but they know a bunch of people are going to buy it. So they'll make $500,000 on it. Yeah. But that was kind of like the environment at that time, you know, because keep in mind that was before like big tech was popping, you know, so like penny stocks were kind of like the hot thing, like crypto was, that was the hot thing, was penny stocks, but it was such like BS, like it was fluff, you know, it was just like pump and dump BS type of stuff. So there was no like mentorship, nothing, you know, and like even for like VA, like it's kind of like I've been through the ringer, like I know what to do and what not to do, and I just wish it would have my learning curve would have been a lot faster, right? And I wouldn't have made as many silly mistakes during that time. But there wasn't anything really like that, you know, as far as like mentorships. There's a couple of them out there, but you know.
So what's the like growth process from trading penny stocks getting to the point where you actually are starting to have some understanding of, is it like you're studying TA and starting to learn like charts, reading charts and indicators, and you're just looking on like YouTube /Google/books, going through all the above and trial and error?
funny enough, you've probably heard me say this before on like webinars and stuff, but I learned like the hard way all the way through, like literally all the way through. I learned the hard way. So I learned by price action, watching the tape. Like that's a year of my time. I was up at morning bell. I missed like 2 days for the whole year, watching the charts, watching the tape, and watching like CNBC at the time, and just seeing, which is funny because it's like entertainment. It's not real. It's like do the opposite. There's like a CNBC inverse effect. Whatever they say, do the opposite. But I watched that for a year and learned like the hard way by watching the tape and just watching price action. So people ask me, even if you have people like, well, you know, what books would you recommend? Or, you know, like what would you recommend? I was like, I don't have any. I don't have any recommendations. I truly don't, because I didn't read a book. I didn't watch videos. I didn't. Like I just kind of learned it the hard way and just watched it live and just kind of figured it out on my own. There's no books I read. There's no videos I watched. I took a long ass time, which again, it probably could have taken me 3 months versus a whole year. But that's what I did. I just watched the tape and learned how news would affect, and just seeing the BS, even the stuff I teach in VA, for example, like Sprint, for example. I'll never forget this one. Sprint, there was a rumor at one point. I went short on it because everything just looked terrible on the chart. I went short right on the day that it was like like if you look at the chart, it probably won't make sense to a lot of people, but it was just a perfect short. And it was like on this day, it's like, today is the day to short this. It's just perfect. It's setting up. It's ready to just take a shit. CNBC. So I go short. CNBC comes out. Oh, there's a rumor that Warren Buffett wants to like buy a stake in Sprint. What happens to the price? Froom.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, got my face ripped off there, but I learned, like, now I get to teach that, you know, like that the technicals, as far as the charts are concerned, influence the news.
Sure.
The news didn't influence that chart. The chart was already set up in current time, like present time. The news, or whoever is kind of like Blue Star loves Sprint, like Wall Street type of stuff, like that's all that was, because the rumor came out as fake, or it was just a rumor, you know, like 2 days later. But it screwed over a lot of people during that perfect time to go short.
Sure.
So I teach that in VA all the time too. It's like, and that's something you can't teach unless you've been doing it and watching. Like you would have had to see that happen live. And I saw so many things like that where I'm like, okay, there's a pattern here. The charts actually influence the news. When you see a headline on CNBC or Bloomberg, look at the chart before and the setup's there. You're just waiting for it. Even on Bitcoin, I did that on the first rally, like 2017 in Bitcoin. There were specific times on the chart where I would tell people in like big faith. This is when I was just doing it because I love to do it. Like just showing like my charts and just, you know, it was fun to me. And like I didn't care to make money. I was just doing it to do it. I'd be like, no, watch this. Like there's a big move coming in Bitcoin. Just wait for a headline. Sure enough, like 2 days later, massive headline. Bitcoin makes a huge move. That wasn't random.
Yeah.
Like there's no coincidences in the markets. There's no coincidences in the charts. Like anybody that says there is, it's not, you know, like it's all, there are people behind the scenes that see that chart that everyone can see. And they're like, all right, what are we going to do to make this chart, you know, move? What's the, what am I trying to think? What was the first one? Well, there's a 2008 crash, but even recently, I won't say the word just so we don't get flagged on YouTube, but obviously the C thing that we're all going through, the C virus thing. I made a video in May of 2021, or no, 2020. Wait, when was it? Was it 21? When did it start? 2020?
Yeah.
2020, so it had been 2019? Okay, so 2019, in May, I made a video and said, hey, there's something huge on the chart. This is going to take a while for it to play out. But I was looking at monthly charts. Like people look at minute charts, 5-minute charts, and think that that's going to influence like a bigger time frame. It won't. So I was looking at weekly charts, monthly charts. The monthly chart showed something extreme where I'm like, there's something big that's going to happen here. Just wait for it. It's coming. And based on that, I was like, looking at everything I have here, it should happen by like December. So give it like another 6-7 months, whatever it is. Something big is going to happen here. My timing was off because I was short by like 2 months.
Wow.
Again, like a two different, like, what if I was short during that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like probably be in the islands. I'm like living on the islands, you know, like it would have been a different time, you know, like it would have been a different life if something like that, but I was off on the timing by a couple months, actually by like a month and a half or something. But sure enough, that's why I'm kind of like such a, I don't know if you want to say like critic or like, there's just everything out there is just like bullshit. You know what I mean? Like everything we see in it, it's all bullshit. All this that's happening, it's all like what we've just went through the last couple of years. That's bullshit. Like the financial world, the markets showed that something big was coming, and they just needed a reason. They needed something. So, and that's the cool thing about like just trading. If you're really on top of it in the pulse of markets, you get like a world view of how the world operates. And when you kind of like it's like Matrix, like blue pill, red pill. When you take that red pill, you realize like how much bullshit everything is, you know? And like when that happened, I'm like, that wasn't random. You know what I mean? Like monthly charts on the S&P futures, it was all there. Like anyone could spot it from like almost a year ago. It was all there. They just needed something. Like they needed something to move to make that finally break and happen. So when you see enough of that, you just realize like everything's bullshit.
So all that time and energy and effort is leading into what I know there was a first chapter, but we'll just skip over that and just jump right to VA. How does Volatile Alpha start? And what's the goal for that?
Yeah. I mean, so same thing. Like I was just doing it for free, like in Facebook groups, posting my TA just because I like to do it. You know, like it was fun. It was cool to kind of try to teach people that way because I was passionate about it. So it was easy. If you're passionate about it, it's easy. You know, like you don't feel like you're working. So I would just post stuff in public groups and, you know, the response was there. Like people liked what I was saying because like most of the time everything I posted was playing out, you know? So they're like, how, you know, like you're like spot on with like all this stuff. And it kind of got like overbearing to where it turned into like a business essentially. So I was working with another group doing the same thing, kind of went like a paid route. And I was doing that for like a year and then I started my own thing and I just walked away and started my own thing. And the funny enough is like people came to me. Like it was never, from that situation, the best part is I didn't have to ask anybody to come follow me. Like I'm confident in what I do. I'm confident in the value I bring because it's been proven for so long. I'm doing my own thing, you know? And if you want to come with, cool. If not, that's cool too. But I didn't have to reach out to nobody. So that was like, for me, that was a big thing. It's like, you can't fake. It's like people are either, if nobody wanted to reach out to me, it would have proven that like I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't valuable, but you know, the tribe spoke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. And that's kind of like history. That's where it started. You know, people followed me.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like from firsthand experience, like I was just kind of one of those people who would catch a random glimpse of like, check out the profits that these guys just made and just be like,
what the hell? Yeah.
What's he doing over there? You know? And then like another month maybe goes by or something like that. And those same kind of just profit pictures. And it's like, I know you. So I know this isn't like just some Photoshop trying to draw you in kind of thing. And then eventually it was just like, yeah, fuck it. I have to try. Cause like I was in the position of like, I barely just had like a handful of things in the stock market. My mom loves the stock market. My grandpa used to literally watch the TV and just like make notebook entries of all his positions. Like, I mean, he used to have like a stockbroker he would call. He'd been doing it for forever, you know, like it was really wild with like the fact that, you know, it was all pre-internet. Like he didn't know anything like computer wise, but I didn't pay attention to that. I didn't ask him about it. I regret like that would have been a huge like bonding category vehicle thing for us. Cause I'm super into it now and super interested by it now. And I had no idea and I have no idea what kind of knowledge he even had, but he did really well. That inspired my mom. My mom loved it. My mom was always kind of like, buy some stock. You know, these companies are probably always going to be here. Apple, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. So it was like great, you know, even when I was younger, like Target and all that stuff in like 2007, 2008. Like there's a lot of companies that my mom was just on top of. And after going through like the 2017 crypto bubble, I was like, fuck, I got my ass handed to me. Yeah. I saw how I could have made so much money if I didn't da-da-da-da-da. And then seeing like the setup again, like I guess 2019 maybe summer, it started to move again. And it was like, let me get educated, you know? And so seeing your like ads, seeing the profit from people was just like, oh, let me hop into this. And like, I have been
It's funny you say that because you were so skeptical for
Yeah.
like the longest time.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I was like, you could like I've known at this point. Funny enough, because that's what I was going to tell. I look back at my Instagram from like a long ass time ago.
Sure.
I want to show you something. Hold on. Even after all this time, I thought it was hilarious.
I'm sure.
Let me see where it's at. Right here.
I can only imagine how good this is.
Look at the date. You see that?
Wow. 2012.
2012.
April 9th, 2012.
So I've known you for 10 years.
Yeah.
And even after this, you're like, I don't know, man. I'm just like, bro, I've known you for a decade. Like, what is the deal here? And you were so skeptical to do it.
Yeah.
And then you finally did it. And like, not to speak for you, but you were like, yeah, I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah. It's funny because like when I started getting into that world, like, there were tons of like influencer, you see how I got these Lamborghinis in my garage, and it was just kind of like,
you don't have to do that. Like,
yeah, but that was just like constantly in your face. And I had a friend, like a friend I met through the studio, Nick, it lives in Washington, and he like was somebody I was always kind of like, oh man, you got to check out stock market, crypto market. He got really into the stock market. Like I was just like doing the most surface level shit.
Yeah.
He was like really doing serious research, and was kind of like, dude, you don't need like classes. It's all on YouTube. And now to his credit, I would say like there is a ton of information. And I would argue that it's actually not the information that's really the valuable part at this point, so much as like the community in VA and like the different
backgrounds,
people who do different things within the markets. That is the fascinating part to me. Like, yes, it was very helpful that I could like read the books that you put together and watch the videos and like learn TA, but like actually having discussions with people and like actually seeing like, oh man, this guy specializes in foreign exchange and he literally fucking makes $1,500 a day every day like a goddamn robot.
Shout out Paul.
Yeah.
Mr. Buckets.
It's really insane. But you start having conversations with people within that place, and you're just like, this is the valuable part. Everybody kind of seemed to branch out, especially we were all riding like the super duper high of like the ride up in 2020, and everybody's just pitching all these things, and your breakdowns have been phenomenal with like, especially like the options trades we did. And I remember the first one I got into was like the Alibaba trade we all hit. And it was just like the most fun thing to be like,
I know, it was
fuck,
that in the Microsoft, I'll never forget that. Microsoft was, I think we prepared that trade for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I'm like, the dark pools were hitting, they were printing. I'm like, no, something's brewing here. Like there's something huge about to happen. And like a bunch of us all at that time, like I want to say there was probably like 10 of us, like all at once. We're like, boom, we finally got like the move. And we all just cashed out. It was great.
It's a really fun feel. It's like a weird modern day hunting.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Where we're all just kind of like, oh, we got the big kill. Holy shit. Like you get to eat. You get to eat. But it's really like, it's amazing.
It's cool.
It is really, it's been such a cool, like, honestly, like life-changing thing for me in many ways, mainly obviously financially, just because like, for me, it's a very like, ends meet kind of world in the studio and music business. Like, I've always been for the culture side. So I've really never gone for like just specifically the money. And like, when you're in that world, it's fucking tight, all the time.
Yeah.
But pivoting in like 2020 to start studying like the market side of things and just realize like, oh shit, man, like there's so much money you can make here. And it's, I prefer the crypto world just cause it's, like applies to my hours better. Like I can do something that's 24/7.
Yeah. It's like, and that's the cool thing. Like even in VAs, like you can do the crypto or you can do equity side. And even myself, like I'll jump back and forth. Like there's times when, like for example, crypto, like that's probably where I'm going to focus again, most of my energy, because it's 24/7 and I can just scalp all day, just go back and forth, back and forth. Where equities, it's not, you're on more of like a time, I don't want to say that because there are sleepless nights, even when you're trading crypto, where you're like stuck in a trade and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Like she knows. It's just like, I'll bring the laptop to bed. I'm like, I got to babysit this trade now for like, I know I'm not sleeping tonight. This sucks.
Yeah.
It works out, but you will have those times, but it's just 24/7, which is really nice. But I'll even say this too. Funny enough that you bring that up. For the longest time, everyone thinks like, oh, crypto, it's so manipulated. Not even close. Like literally not even close. Equities, from the big crash that happened, were functioning like never before in like the worst way. Meaning if you were experienced, you were likely not doing well, versus if you know nothing, you're making a bunch of money. So even for me, like that was painful to watch all these newbies come in, make a bunch of money, and they don't even know how. And I'm not talking about VA, I'm just talking about in general, just online. Because it's like your friends on Facebook or Instagram have never talked about the stock market. All of a sudden, like, oh my God, I'm up, 10,000%. Like, this is so easy. It's just like, you guys don't understand. Like, this is not normal. Things are not functioning how they're supposed to. That's a manipulated market. I don't care what anybody says. Kind of like the charts influence. Equities are manipulated. There's always people that know more, that can move things behind scenes that, like it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of have to accept that. Versus the crypto world, that flows like a real market, like a true human psychology led market. Like, you can see the greed and you can see the fear on charts in crypto. 1 minute, I'm talking about like scalping, 5 minute, all that. You can see it. It's almost like easy. Like, even when I do the real time trades on the crypto side, it's almost stupid where I'm like, yeah, watch this level, watch this happen, boom, plays out. Yeah. Because it's so real. It's a real market. It's like real human beings behind it making these decisions based on fear and greed. Equity isn't like that. That's all kind of planned and pre-planned. Sure, there are like these weird things that happen that like screw a lot of people. But that's a manipulated market. Crypto, people that say it's manipulated, no, not even close. Not even close. That's the most, watching the tape in crypto and watching the human emotion in that, there's nothing like that. Like, there really isn't. It's a free market. It's truly a free market. Equity is not a free market. We can pretend it is. It isn't. It's not. Anybody in the world can get into crypto. So what does that tell you? Like, it's more human beings moving that market based on fear and greed. That's all the markets are in the general. Like, what are markets run on? Fundamentals, blah, blah, blah. Some people can say that. No, fear and greed. That's it. Equities, no. It's all planned. It's like, I don't need to sound like nihilistic or anything, but it's like, it's all BS. You know what I mean? Like, it's all, everyone, there's always some people on the back end that know what's going to happen, like, for sure. Like, shout out to Nancy Pelosi, right? Yeah. The greatest trader of all time, inside trading as a politician. It's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. 100%. You know what I mean? Like, it's bullshit. Yeah. Crypto, no. Like, it's a real market. It's a free flowing market as a market should be. That's why I kind of lean back towards the trade in crypto, because in my opinion, with my experience, it's like really predictable. Like, it's extremely predictable, and equities, anything can happen. Sure. Like a headline, even if the charts aren't lining, it's a headline that somebody's like, hey, Blue Star loves Sprint. It's a wrap. Your position doesn't matter. There's nothing you could have done, where Bitcoin, crypto, that's not happening. It's just really not.
So where do you have like your eyes set for the future and the evolution of VA?
So up until this point, it's been like super grassroots, organic, like no advertising. I did like a small advertising test like years ago. And I don't know. I just don't, I like the organic route, versus, disturbing somebody online, like watching something. And some people make that work and make a ton of money. But I wanted it to be organic in like a good community in that sense, like a close community where we can share ideas. If you're familiar with Discord, like there's just a bunch of groups out there. It's just a shit show. Like people are just, everyone's like moon boy, like there's no like real information being shared. It's just kind of like everyone's just gambling, just hoping for the best, going all in. And I'm in a lot of those groups just to see what everyone else is doing. And, I would never want to be that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I care. Like, I care about my name. I care about the information I put out. I care. I give a shit. A lot of people don't. It's like they'll advertise online with the Lambo, in the Hollywood Hills saying like, join my course and join my, it's just like, how about you just do good, teach people right, and let their results show for it. And that's all literally that's my advertising strategy. If you're winning, look what Nick's doing. Yeah. Like, that's my advertising strategy. I don't need a car. I don't need a home. I don't need to rent shit. Totally. I let you be my advertising, essentially. And that's how it should be. Yeah. And so it's been organic, up into this time. I won't say the name just because it's a done deal, essentially. But there's a big like trading terminal that I'm partnering up with. And that should be massive for VA. They have like 60, 70,000 users. They just secured $5 million in funding. They're looking to go public. They just got a bunch of press and like even like Barron's, which is kind of like Bloomberg essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to monetize, in a way, because they're free. Like they're free to use their terminal and everything. So they're trying to think CFO. I think CFO. That's his title. He reached out to me because funny enough, he's in VA and he's just like, hey, like let's chat, because we're doing this and maybe there's something we can do together. So they basically want VA to kind of be their education and community source for their terminal. And, it's still kind of organic, it's kind of like, I don't have to, there's no advertising really involved. It's kind of like, well, you have a user base that's looking to learn. You have a great piece of software and we kind of like, it works.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean? Like you have what I want and you have what I want and I have what you want. So it just kind of works. And it's just a small world too, because I didn't even realize it, but even like their CMO, like I've known him for a long time. So, and I had no idea he was even working for them. He was like, yo, I work for them. Like, I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. It's a small world. It's a really small world.
It is.
But that should be pretty awesome. So, even like right now, I think there's like 160 people in VA, again, all organic, no advertising. And this, I think, is going to like 4x, 5x it by the end of the year pretty easily because it's all in place. Like they have everything in place. Kind of
buy volatile alpha stock while you can.
Yeah.
It's going 4 or 5x, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait. We didn't even mention this. Nothing I say is financial advice. Okay. I'm an idiot. You will lose all of your money. Don't listen.
Perfect.
Don't listen. Just had to throw that out there.
What are like just a full segue? What are some of your current favorite hobbies?
Well, we moved from LA, which sucked. You know what I mean? Because like I thought I was live and die in LA. I love LA. It's where my people are. But I don't know. It got shitty, man. Like it's kind of like heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Like everything just changed. Like we talk about it all the time. It just went so much. I don't know. I like freedom. Let's just say that. I like freedom. I like my choice. And so we moved to Austin, Texas. And I have family there that has been there for like 20 years. So it wasn't new. Like I've been going South by Southwest. Like I've been going to Texas for a long time. So we moved there. So as far as hobbies, I like guns a lot. So it was cool moving to Texas. It's like, oh wow, I can just buy guns all the time and like buy ammo. I can have ammo shipped to my door. Like what world am I living in?
Yeah.
Something you would never be able to do in LA County, like ever. So yeah, I mean, I like to shoot. We like to go, we don't know hobbies. I don't know. I like to work. I mean, I do like to work. That's kind of where my focus is right now. Driving, I do like driving a lot. That was kind of like my thing here in LA. It's like I would just hit the PCH up and hit the canyons, the racetrack, same thing, like Laguna Seca, Button Willow, like I like cars. So I like racing. Now we have COTA, Circuits of America, which is pretty awesome in Austin, F1 track. So yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty focused as far as like hobbies. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm so busy like now, like as far as like free time, I don't have that much at the moment, but I mean, that would be cars, guns, soccer. We like going to soccer games.
Nice.
Again, like I grew up, like I wanted to be a soccer player.
Yeah.
Right. And so Austin FC has a team now, stadium, phenomenal stadium. And like, that's the energy in that stadium, man. You got to be there. You just have to be there.
I still haven't been to a professional game.
Oh man. Like I never even went to a Galaxy game or an LAFC game, like never. And now I'm like hooked on soccer. Like we were driving like out here and I have like the soccer game on my like while we're driving, I have it like sideways on the thing, like watching the soccer game. So yeah, soccer's dope.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I don't know if you got anything else that comes to mind, but
I don't know, man.
I mean, I feel like we did a pretty good job kind of running through your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're doing here is sick. Like I've seen you transition like so many different ways here and, you're doing, I'm glad you have this because I think you have a lot of stories to share. Like anybody that's ever been to True Studios, he's got a Polaroid wall that has like anyone and everyone. Like you listen to one of those artists that are on the board, like, I think you doing this podcast is awesome, and I think you should like interview everyone because there's so many good stories. Like if you think about it, like, there's so many. If you're talking about just musicians in general, it almost is so like hard. Like say they're recording music or whatever, and then somebody wants to have, oh, come do a podcast. Like, okay, yeah, we'll get to it, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, perfect. Let's record whatever. Oh, you want to like come tomorrow and do the podcast too, or the same day, whatever it is. Like you have so many stories that I think you could get out from artists that like nobody's ever heard from. And like that, the way you have that set up is sick. Like,
thank you, man.
It's dope.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm really excited
to see where you take it.
I'm excited with having this. It's actually worked out so far, even though this is still new, it's actually worked out exactly like that. And I'm excited to just be able to capture people where it's like, oh, cool, we just did this session. Like, how do you feel about doing a podcast episode? You know, and for me, my favorite thing and kind of the main reason for doing this is like, I've discovered I love.
I was going to ask you that too.
Like,
what made you start it?
It's a few different things, honestly. I feel like I've never really been like on camera or like actually like been public at all in like my entire career. And it was just one of those things where I've had all these awesome conversations, and it's either been like behind closed doors or like interviewing somebody maybe, and it's like I have no interaction with that, and it just became this idea of like, well, I know all these people, and I think this would be really cool to just start building this collection of like people telling their life story.
Yeah.
You know, and originally that started with like just the concept of have people tell their life story, you know, like like in first person, in real time, by, you know, oh, you read about this and some journalist skewed this thing. Like, no, this is literally like the person.
There was like no, like you didn't tell me what you're going to do. You're like, hey, let's rock.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And, you know, originally one of the ideas besides just doing this specific show was with my dad. I wanted to do a podcast called My Dad's Friends, because my dad was a crazy motherfucker and he was so funny. And all of his friends are like all these people that like basically raised me.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. Like the collection of people is incredible. And so I started to think about like, what kind of project could I do with my dad as like something that's kind of fun, because he's semi-retired kind of in that world. He's got a couple deals, things he still does to stay active. But I was like, this might be a cool thing, you know? So in my mind, I started hustling to like piece this together, you know, faster.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he passed away. So it was like, well, now I still have to figure out how I'm going to do that, but obviously just by myself.
Right.
And that honestly was kind of the main inspiration for like just like start capturing. And it's one of those things, it's kind of like you never know, even from the musician standpoint, we lose so many musicians every year. It's kind of like you never know when you're just going to turn the corner and just be gone. So it's kind of like, fuck, man, I just like the idea of having these capsules of people telling their own story. You know, I'd love to like revisit with people in 10 or 20 or 30 years and like literally just be one of those like documenting people like, okay, this is Ty from 0 to 32. What happened with Ty from 32 to 60, you know, in 30 years, be able to be like, yo, man, let's do another podcast episode. And like, just to me, I find that stuff super fascinating, you know, and I think it's cool for people to have that to share with their families, to share with, you know, friends, and just be like, hey, man, like, there's probably a lot of stuff people didn't know about you. Like, I love learning about my friends, and I realize like I know very little about my friends' actual like lives growing up, where they were from, what they were into. So it's just also just been something I just enjoy for the sake of like deepening actual relationships.
No, absolutely.
You know? And coming out of COVID, it was like perfect timing, because now it's like, oh, we're all kind of craving like real conversation. You know? Like put my phone down, not have distractions, not worry about shit, and just be like, boom, we're here talking, you know?
I think that's amazing. I really do, because I don't think there's a lot. Like I watched some interviews, but nobody's really like diving in, especially if it's already a personal friendship kind of thing. Like people that you're recording, like you already have kind of like that relationship. People are a little bit more open, kind of a thing. Like I've never done like a like how it started type of thing, but there's no one else I'd rather do it with.
Hey, man.
Like you're good people.
Thank
I've
you.
known you for a long time, and what you're doing here is pretty awesome. I think you're going to get a lot of amazing like gems out of people that they probably had no idea.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's another exciting project, and in much the same way you're a self-starter and kind of like going through all the different stages of things you started. Like I've had a very similar lifestyle. And like, to me, this is just an exciting, like, it's a very complimentary, simple thing. I still have yet to get around to it, but I plan to also have a segment or another channel or whatever the method is of getting out, like a studio engineering educational series.
Yeah.
Just on some like, you know, it's almost like in that same VA footprint of like, let me just start posting a bunch of this stuff for free. I know I can help a lot of people and like tell people how I got on. And eventually, like, if that becomes like some form of community, I feel like it'd be awesome to have like that music hub that's just like, this is a great place to network in. This is a great place to ask questions, you know, and it's nice that it opens up the entire like world via the internet versus like people who can actually come in and be at the studio.
True. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you have a great space for it too. Like even before, like you were doing jam sessions here in like this space, because this used to be kind of like almost like a retail type of thing a long time ago.
Yeah. I sublet this to some guys for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And then like the studio basically got to the point where it felt like it was just like outgrowing having a shared space and got a little like conflict of just like, you know, territory and how that all operates, and just it was a bummer it kind of went south with how it ended, but it was great. There was also just a really cool kind of like moment in time where all that worked really well. It was really complimentary, and so it was great. But after some time off of that, seeing this place host shows was so fucking cool.
It was cool.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
That is honestly probably the worst part for me about COVID was like, I was planning on doing like a weekly.
Because you just started kind of doing that thing. Yeah.
I had 6 of them in the bag and like literally was looking at like, okay, every night, Thursday night, soul show. It's going to be some unknown shit. It'll be like one of these other venues in LA where it's kind of like, you never know who else could come just hop in and perform and do a set. And it was a great.
It's like a mini South by right here.
Yeah. It was a great just starting point where I was like, okay, how can I move this to a venue? How can I actually get like a professional space that like I can, you know, curate a little bit better, put on better sounding shows, have more people, you know, and expand the offering, but with the same kind of talent and people that were doing those shows. And just kind of all got derailed to the point where I was like, well,
just the timing.
Podcast studio.
Yeah. I know. And it's amazing too.
Thank you, man.
I'm excited to see where you take this, and I think you've done a great job setting it up, because even like setting this stuff up isn't easy for anybody that like doesn't know. Like you do sound, so the mic part is easy for you.
Yeah.
People like, if people are taking in content, sound is the number one. People will, if we're running off of a laptop like a FaceTime camera, people generally don't give a shit.
Yeah.
If the mic and sound is good, because people can just not look at it and just listen to it. It's like number one in making content for any kind of like podcast, or like even for my stuff for VA. Like that was the one thing I need to make sure my sound's on point, because people only listen to shitty sound for so long. So like you already have that part. That's the easy part. The lighting is like a whole nother ballgame. Like I had to go through so much content, just try to like, funny enough, like I almost bought this guy's course on like lighting, you know, like how to light stuff for like YouTube content type of stuff, because it's a whole art to do lighting. But it matters, you know what I mean? Like after you get the sound down, the lighting does kind of matter, and like after that, like you're good. Like you just make it.
For me, it's just it's always been a plant the flag and then just start and evolve.
Figure it out.
You know, it's like the first like 10 episodes kind of look like shit to me. I had like friends who'd pop in, video director or somebody, would be like, hey man, can you help me get these cameras set, you know, get the filter, get this the right way. And all of a sudden it was like, oh cool, we look like that's the starting point. You know? And like after the research and learning about like the camera, the body, the lens, the light, the whole thing, it's like, okay, cool, well, I bought the wrong shit, but I'm just going for it. So like, fuck it, it'll get better. You know, I figured like the first 50 or 100 episodes might not have the quality that I'm aiming for, and then, you know, hopefully it'll just be super smooth sailing from there. But I mean, it's just to start and go.
No, you're doing great, man.
Thank you, man.
I'm excited for you, and you know, I can't wait to come back.
Yeah. 30 years. Let's go. Epic, dude. Well, thank you again for coming through.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Hour and a half.
Not bad.
Perfect.
It felt long.